Push one in the chat if you can hear me. All right, got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 798, Black Politics. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. Also, there's a link in the chat for you to join the discussion. If you have Zoom on your phone or your desktop, make sure you update to the latest Zoom or you won't be able to join. Let me preface this by saying that I have a great deal of respect for TD Hip Hop Media. He's actually a subscriber of ours in the manosphere. And so I don't think he's Black manosphere, but I definitely know he has subscribed to us in the past. So I wanted to actually respond to a video that he did a day or so ago about Black Chicagoans standing up to and halting $51 million in funding for undocumented persons, as a victory for Black politics on the ground. So let me share my screen. We can play the video real quick. I actually wasn't going to do this. I don't like to kind of leverage the Black Brain Trust for throwing punches at everybody, but this needs to be addressed. I can't stand by some of these ideals that are being pushed out here. So let me start by playing this. Push one in the chat if you can see the screen.
Live chat. And where's Deneen Grant? Deneen Grant better be here because she was bugging me 2 days ago saying, are you going to show your face today? I haven't showed my face in a while. And now I don't see Deneen Grant anywhere in sight. You see, now because of Deneen Grant, I'm in Chicago right now is very important, right? It's very important. And what we're seeing right now is a minor victory that's occurred. And it's a minor, and I want to make sure to preface this properly, right? So we're not getting too ahead of ourselves and stuff, right? What's happening right now is a minor and temporary victory that's occurred in Chicago, where brothers and sisters have stood up in protest to the millions upon millions of dollars that's going to illegal immigrants throughout the city of Chicago. But when community organizers and community activists sought out those type of finances and resources, whether it be funds from the city or whether it be, abandoned buildings, like I believe it was called the South Shore High School, right? Whenever they were asking for these funds and asking for help so that they can actually patrol and take care of their own communities on their own, they were always denied these things. But now once all these illegal immigrants got bused to Chicago by Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, now all of a sudden, Chicago's making it rain, right, for them, and making sure that they have all the finances and resources that they need in order to get adjusted in Chicago, right? So the brothers and sisters over there have been protesting this heavy, right? And they have got this temporary hold that has occurred on the funds, right? And it's about time that we've seen something like this occur, right? Before I get too deep into the discussion, it's really about time because oftentimes we're the ones on the opposite end of having whatever resources or assistance we may have coming our way halted. We're always at the opposite end of that. We've all seen how things have played out with Black farmers, right? when I believe it was American Rescue Plan came out, when that was signed into law, there was supposed to be money in there for, not specifically for Black farmers, but for, what is it called? Disadvantaged farmers, right? So it wasn't exclusively for Black farmers, but as far as how it was sold to the public, this was going to be great for Black farmers. Well, what happened to that? Conservatives all throughout the country, particularly, like in places like Texas, and I believe like, other areas where, there's a lot of farming going on. They sued the government, got the money locked in litigation. And ultimately what happened is that, if I remember correctly, the Biden administration removed that provision, if I'm using that correctly, that provision, right, out of the American Rescue Plan. So they just didn't get any money at all, right? The Biden administration didn't fight for Black farmers at all. They just completely removed that part out of the American Rescue Plan, and Black farmers are just on their own. We saw the same thing happen during in the midst of the.
So let me correct this. And this is something that I see.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
I have to correct this, because this is something that the anti-democrat, content creators in YouTube and other forms of social media, this is what they do. So what happened with the Black farmers was that the conservatives, the Republicans and libertarians sued, or made an attempt to sue, the administration for discrimination against white farmers. Okay, and so that's what tied it up. In this country, you cannot use race as a determining factor for certain provisions unless it's people of tribal lands. So you can, because they don't fall under race, but they do fall under a special protected category. Okay. That being said, they took out the language of Black farmers and put something else as non-racial as a category. Okay. So the money is tied up now because white farmers weren't going to be the biggest beneficiaries of it. So it wasn't that the Biden administration didn't fight for them. They had to extract that that classification out so that they can actually pass the bigger part of the bill, because then the Office of Civil Rights under Department of Justice could actually allocate those funds to the Black farmers after the fact, that the Black farmers could actually carry the case forward with Kristen Clark and the Office of Civil Rights. So that is what happened. But if you listen to TD Hip Hop Media and some of these other anti-left, anti-democrat content creators, this is what happens. Okay, they say this sort of stuff and they leave out the actual substance of the situation that happened. Go ahead, MOT. What's going on, bro?
What's going on? And they try to make it so ominous to where I think I know what happened. I think this is what happened. Like, no, dude, like you knew that you was about to do a specific live stream about a specific topic. You can specifically be correct about specifically what you're talking about on that. There is no way in the world that in the South, where the majorities of the conservatives have a lock and a stranglehold and control of those actual legislatures, there's no way that they would be voting for this bill, period. In fact, they would be the people who are anti this bill. But you have to put these people on notice, because a lot of these people, this guy included, they don't want any participation in the actual process itself. That's what they're trying to do. They don't want any participation in the process. They're not conservatives. They're not on the left, but they make points as if they're on the right. Trust me, you're here to just float a whole bunch of BS and nonsense. And at the end of the day, if you actually want to debate this actual guy on the points, they'll claim that you're cloud chasing. They'll claim that you're cloud chasing, but it's not cloud chasing to actually be 100% wrong and run Republican interference. There's a lot of Black people who run Republican interference. This is an example of it. You're looking at it right now. Because it's easy to be actually educated on the actual issues. We have Google, we have Chat GPT. Like, there are actual ways of learning historically what's going on. But this is what I say about these people who actually want to keep the whole conversation behind by leveraging the collective ignorance of people who want to be right away with
Yep.
this actual issue. It's crazy.
Big 19, as I would call it, right? In the midst of the health situation that we were dealing with in 2020, when there was supposed to be money that was going to Black businesses, I believe it was in Oregon. It's something that I covered on this channel as well, and I spoke on a couple times. I believe it was in Oregon, and what happened was money was given to businesses in areas that were predominantly illegal immigrants in Oregon, and no one had a problem with that. Everything was cool, fine, great. Help them out, let them get their little money and keep their little businesses and everything afloat, right? There was money diverted specifically to predominantly, I believe it was Chinese community over there, or AAPI community, we'll just say, in Oregon. Nobody cared. Everything was cool. Everything was fine. But the moment funds were specifically being withheld for Black businesses in Oregon, mind you, not just for Black people where we're just giving Black folks money, it was specifically for Black businesses in Oregon. As soon as they were getting ready to do that, all of a sudden, it was a white man, right, and a Mexican man who sued the state of Oregon, locking that money up in litigation so that the Black businesses could not receive those funds, right? So like I said, I can go on and on. There's another example that I have in my head right now, but I don't want to be
okay, stop the video right here. Stop the video right here. Okay. And there is nothing left-wing about the state of Oregon except for the Portland metro area. And that's about all. In fact, they want to extend the borders of Idaho all the way up until the actual coastline of actual Oregon. So what he's actually talking about is those rural people from those rural farm areas. Because if you go across I-84 all the way across actual Oregon, all that stuff is right-wing area up until about 30 miles before you hit I-5. All that stuff is 100% right-wing. There are no Black people out there. I have never seen a Black person out there. Out of the years that I've been driving over the road, I have never seen a Black person in those areas. And I've stopped at every rest stop, every Walmart, every grocery store across I-84 between in the past 13 years that I've been driving. I've never seen a Black person out there. So of course, the people out there who's going to be suing are those Latinos, because there are Latinos and there are whites who actually farm that middle of the actual area. And yes, you're talking about right-wing people who's suing to hold that up. But when you're running right-wing interference, you can tend to leave that out. Because a lot of people don't know how politics work. And they depend on these hip hop and entertainment guys to do intellectual discourse for them because they trust them so much with the entertainment piece. This is why you do not trust entertainers who's used to leveraging the collective ignorance of their audience to talk about entertainment, to talk about things about politics, unless they actually know what they're talking about, because he doesn't.
So let me know if you can see what's on my screen right here.
I can
in the chat, you could just push one. Yeah, I think the chat might be a little bit delayed. So this is Oregon's Black exclusion laws, okay? Oregon's racial makeup has been shaped by 3 Black exclusion laws that were put in place during much of the region's early history. These laws, all later rescinded, largely succeeded in their aim of discouraging free Blacks from settling in Oregon early on, ensuring that Oregon would develop as primarily white. White immigrants who came to present-day Oregon during the 1840s and 1850s generally opposed slavery, but many also opposed living alongside African Americans. Many were non-slave holding farmers from Missouri and other border states who had struggled to compete against those who owned slaves. To avoid a similar competitive situation in Oregon, they favored excluding Blacks entirely, although a small number did settle in the region, what it should say. A few immigrants brought slaves to Oregon during this time, taking advantage of the lack of enforcement of Oregon's anti-slavery laws. Oregon's small white population had voted on July 5th, 1843, to prohibit slavery by incorporating into Oregon's 1843 organic laws a provision of the 1787 Northwest Ordinance. Quote, there shall be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in the said territory otherwise than in the punishment of crimes whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. The law was amended, however, on June 26, 1844 by the Provisional Government's new Legislative Council, headed by Missouri immigrant Peter Burnett. As amended, the law prohibited slavery, gave slaveholders a time limit to remove their slaves out of the country, and freed slaves if their owners refused to remove them. So the history of Oregon has always been anti-Black. It was born out of anti-Blackness, right? And so when you hear TD Hip Hop make this statement as if, when you hear TD Hip Hop make this statement as if, oh yeah, well, that's just Democrats, or the left isn't really fighting for Black people. Well, you got to really know the history first before you actually make these statements. I mean, it's not that difficult to really look up, American history. It's really at your fingertips at this point. Even if you don't feel like reading a book, I mean, it's right in the state's. Every state has its own constitutional history and amendments and different variations of forms of history, libraries of Congress and different things like that actually hold this sort of information available. It's not like they redacted any of this information. But if you listen to TD Hip Hop, which I do, still do have a great deal of respect for, I think that he misses the mark in understanding why they did that during COVID, because the state was born out of anti-Blackness. Okay, they have no interest in having Black people up there, and any sort of provisions for Black people, like MOT said, they're pretty much right wing on that issue. What's going on, Renaissance?
And actually, this is one of the states where Native Americans had slaves in the actual state, was Oregon.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know anything about the history of the actual area and the actual fights that happened between the United States government and the actual Native Americans, you would know that even the Native Americans moved there, and it was kind of like an area to where they could hold slaves and still be left alone, because everybody else was using that quote unquote immigrant labor. That's how they couch the term. But that's exactly what happened. But what it is that if you don't know the actual history and you're trying to connect what's happening everywhere else within the country to what actually happened in Oregon is one of those Western states that is kind of different than everywhere else, because they did have a lot of slavery in Oregon.
Well, Oregon and New Hampshire are I shouldn't say New Hampshire, Oregon and Vermont are alike. Vermont didn't have slavery either because it was so racist they didn't want Black people living there. And so that's the sort of, historical nuances that need to be preferenced before you actually make these statements about why Black business owners in Oregon didn't actually get the, support that they needed financially for their businesses, because you had right-wing people who basically have no interest in those ideals, regardless of how small it was. What's going on, Renaissance man?
Hey, Mike. Hey, Multi.
What's going on, bro?
Wait, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of chatter about this this funding in Chicago, and really, I think a lot of these guys election season is coming around, so you're starting to see these people push these talking points. At least the spaces I've been in on other social media platforms, they seem to have this crazy idea that Republicans are going to support reparations if we push back against immigration, which makes no sense whatsoever. But that's what a lot of these people are pushing. A lot of them are, well, at least the ones I've ran into are, people with some shaky backgrounds, ex-drug dealers that are now these quote unquote community activists. People who just have shady backgrounds in general, in the sense of, flip to one side for whatever reason. So I've heard this talking point of people highlighting this, and I think it's just part of really the electoral politics, because you just had another Democratic mayor elected in Chicago, and the people who I was speaking with, who were pushing this talking point, they actually voted for Paul Vallas. Like they thought he would be good for Black America. So that kind of shows you where the mentality of some of these people is really at. And at the end of the day, I think MOT was talking about it. Once again, anytime I have these people who want to talk about immigration and jobs and things like that, I'm like, hey, I don't see where Black men are lining up to go work in chicken houses here, or go pick vegetables, go stand on the side of the road and get picked up to work and get paid on the table. I don't see any of that. So I think it's a manufactured issue that these people are coming up with. And it just doesn't add up.
Yeah, let me finish playing this clip.
But we're always on the opposite end of this. It's about time that we're the ones blocking the funds, right? But the difference between everybody else and us is that everybody else, it's on the basis of just hatred when it comes to Black folks. But what's happening in Chicago right now, as far as I'm concerned, is a righteous cause, because these are funds and resources that Black Chicago have been demanding and asking for, but they've been denied that. And now they're trying to give it to other people. So that's what we're going to get into. And I'm really glad that this is happening over there. I want to thank you very much, College of Natural Health and Science, BDA, for being the first person to contribute to today's live stream. Thank you very much. Your contribution is deeply, deeply appreciated. College of Natural Health Science, BDA, we told you, and just like that too, more of them than y'all. So you better get used to working with them, right? That's Percy said, remember Jim Crow Joe told Black organizations and so-called Black leaders that we better get along with the Latino community. That's 100% what he said. Remember, he said there's going to be more of them than y'all. All right, that's what he told you. And just like that too, more of them than y'all. So you better get used to working with them. Right? That's exactly what he told us. Now,
see, I want to stop this here because
God,
part of what makes the left, right, in this country, what it is today is coalition building, right? See, everybody has a problem with what Joe Biden is saying in that Zoom call, but nobody seems to want to refer back to Fred Hampton and his Rainbow Coalition during the Black Panther movement in the 70s. When he had the Young Lords, when he had the Young Patriots, when he had the what's the Asians?
Brown, he had brown berets, and I believe the White Panthers.
Yeah, the brown. No, the Young Patriots were the white version of the Black Panthers. See, no one wants to talk about that, right? All these pro-Black people, all of these so-called, I can't believe, Jim Crow Joe, real Jim Crow going on right now in Mississippi and in Tennessee, and nobody has anything to say about it, man. You don't see them making videos about it.
People covered it. None of these people covered it.
Well, here's the thing too that these people seem to miss on the coalition part is that at the end of the day, when you start talking about rights and where your rights come from, your rights don't come from the fact that you're Black in this country. Your rights come from the fact that you are a citizen, and thus when you say, "Hey, I'm a citizen and I'm entitled to these basic rights," you can't turn around and then say, "Oh, okay, well, these people aren't entitled to it because they don't follow X, Y, and Z category." I mean, it undermines the entire credibility of your argument, and that's what these people don't want to deal with on the whole idea. The basis of something like taking down Brown v. Board is equal protection under the law. You can't turn around and then say, "Oh, Black people should be treated this way, and we can just throw away everyone else's right," because then once again you've got to adhere to equal protection under the law. So, you know, the other thing too, when they bring up this whole Zoom call, I'm still lost, but where was he wrong? His point was simply, we've broken it down and we looked at the median age of different age groups. The median age of someone white is damn near 60. The median age of someone black is roughly early 30s. And the median age of someone Hispanic is like 13. So his point is that you have a growing demographic of people and that they're going to have, because of sheer numbers, they're going to be a growing part of the electorate. So you're going to need to cut deals with them the same way, like, you know, these black conservatives seem to be so eager to go cut deals with white racists. You're going to have to work in coalition build. So these people coalition build, they try to hide their hand and act like, oh, I'm not coalition building, you know, even though I'm, I'm becoming Byron Donalds or, Burgess Owens, Mark Robinson on the right. You know, they want to act like that's not coalition building, that's just, oh, we're just all Americans here.
Yeah. Makes no sense to me. Let me finish playing what he's saying. But I can't stand when I hear or I see these comments about Jim Crow Joe, when real Jim Crow's going on all throughout these 14 to 28 states that are banning books, by black authors and throwing black people out of libraries and whatnot, man. Nobody has anything to say about that, but they only got something to say about what Joe Biden is saying in that Zoom call, which none of them actually listened to.
Oh, well, and it's only a clip of it too. That's the other thing, Mike. It's like they focus on like a 30-second clip of what he's saying, and they don't even give the full context of what he's saying.
And that's done on purpose. They don't want you to get the full context of what they're saying. A lot of these guys are, I believe, quite frankly, maybe even paid agents who are paid to push right now a certain view. They don't want to talk about coalition building. That's how you get things done. That's politics. That's dynamics. The group that you were actually talking about were the Warriors of the Rainbow, who were the Asian guys who were playing. They had a band and everything else like that. It was we were really strong with Fred Hampton and them. So you had a multicultural group coming together. That's why Fred Hampton was so scary, because he was bringing these folks together because they understood the big picture there. So people are going to cut and pick what little pieces that they want to put out there and not look at the whole picture. And that was a brilliant piece you brought up just before, because I'm very familiar with this history in Oregon and how it was a state really designed to keep Black people out of it. And you cannot begin to talk about that without looking at the foundations of its history. That's the problem. That's why one of the big movements in this country is to reduce history, so you don't understand exactly what came before and how certain things got done. I'm done, but thanks anyway. But good stuff, really good stuff going on here.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Let's get deeper into what I want to discuss. Right. I don't want to get too far off track. Mimicking Joe Biden, right? Because you all know me, I tend to lose my memory very quickly with what I want to say. One thing too that's to be noticed and that should be highlighted, and another reason why I feel what's happening right now in Chicago needs to be championed and pushed forward as an example of what needs to be done and what we should be doing, right? In order to make sure that we are effectively changing local politics in the city that you live in. The reason I think it's so important to push this forward and for the elevators people can see it is because what you'll notice is that the Democrats, right, liberal media, left-leaning media are desperately trying to keep this under the rug. They don't really want to speak on this. They don't really want to bring light to it, right? Because it's a really bad look to show Black Americans in a Democratic Party city strongly opposing and pushing back against Democratic policies, particularly open borders in this situation. It's a bad look, and they don't want that influence to spread across the country. So that's another reason why I feel this is very important to put out there, because this is something that's being kept under wraps and hush-hush in the mainstream. Now, there are also, I believe, in the northwest side of Chicago, right? The northwest side or north side where white Chicagoans live. they're having, protests and stuff over there too, and they're coming out in droves to speak with at town halls. And I believe a lot of it has also been inspired by Black Chicagoans on the South Side. Now, I want to play
wait, can you pause for a second,
what they're
Mike?
talking about, right?
I just want to quickly point out that he never points to how these immigrants got to Chicago in the first place.
No, he does. He does.
Okay.
He actually does. Yeah. He acknowledges it. So let's finish hearing what he has to say.
White Chicagoans on the north side, and I want to contrast that with what's happening on the south side. Okay, so let me get into this first, and then we're going to come back into the discussion. Oops, which one was it? Let me see. Give me just a second. I believe this is the correct one. Yes. Okay.
Foot was in. She agreed to have Chicago to be a sanctuary city. And where is she now? She's gone.
Another heated community meeting tonight over the placement of migrants.
This time, the city has its sights set on a Northwest Side college as temporary housing.
And a lot of neighbors do not like the idea. Tia Ewing is live with more. Tia.
Well, you said it there, John. A lot of neighbors do not like the idea. There was a lot of mixed emotion here, a lot of opinion from Portage Park residents and also residents from the Dunning community, all voicing their opinions about this move tonight. At times there was booing, at other times there was clapping. The meeting unfolded in the space where the asylum seekers would temporarily call home.
The room was filled to capacity at one point, Chicago residents making their voices heard.
You can be compassionate, but you can't be foolish.
As more than 8,000 migrants have arrived in Chicago since August of 2022, and that number is still going up as Chicago tries to deal with the crisis. On the table is the plan to house them here at Wilbur Wright College, many asking the question about the city's plans moving forward. What are you gonna do? Some on the Northwest Side support it.
We've all struggled along the way and needed help. Every one of us.
Well, Dwayne Williams, this is on the north. He said, dang, not a black person in sight so far. This is on the northwest side of Chicago, where white Chicagoans live. This isn't where black folks live.
Yeah, because they don't want you living over there with them. It's not about, they're not pushing back against migrants because they agree with black people. They're pushing back against migrants because they don't want anybody who doesn't look like them inside their communities. That's what people have to understand. It's not about you.
Exactly. And I'd also going to say too, like, I notice how, at least the way it's presented, they make it sound like everyone's there who is against that. Like, oh, there's a packed crowd of people, but it looks like they're also pointing to, you actually have supporters there as well too. And here's the thing. This, like you said, Mike, it's who's coming here, because once again, when you start thinking in the grand scheme of things, what they said since 2022, there's been 8,000 migrants that have come to the city of Chicago. So basically, roughly a year and a half. That's how many people you've had. I mean, do you understand, for a city, Chicago's what, 5-6 million people?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, wait, this is where like news media and people are dramatizing and overblowing stuff. Because I mean, here's the thing, like I said, city of millions of people, and you're talking about 8,000 people over a year and a half time span. And they're going to house them at what? At one point, people were talking about a high school, and now they're talking about an area of a college. It once again, it's manufactured outrage by the far right, and then you have these black conservatives who want to jump in and try to basically bring Black America into this fight, like it's an issue for us.
That's exactly. Oh,
I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead. You would.
No, I was just going to say that black people make up 29% of the population in Chicago. Go ahead.
No. Renaissance Man brings up the critical point right there. It's manufactured. It's designed to whoop people up into a certain level of hysterics, bring black people in, use these as kind of wedge issues, if you will, and really ramp this up for the 2024 election. That's what this is about. And that you're going to see a lot more of this coming over the next year. I mean, over this year, over the next 7-8 months, they're going to be ratcheting this up to trying to be an all-time high. And black people have to be smart about this, because while they ratchet that up and remove, and cities sit back and segregate themselves, take your voting rights away in these types of things, you see these guys who are basically being being seduced to move to that side, to take your eye off the ball, is to weaken you politically as well. And people are just not seeing what's going on. They're not looking at what's going on the ground. But anyway, that's a very key point that Renaissance Man does bring up, and people can't miss that. You have to keep your eyes really open as to what's going on.
Yeah.
It's time to pay it forward. These are people. They're not political pawns.
And many others don't.
We're inviting in like a magnet. Everybody come here, collect all your freebies. We're going to give it to you. Every sucker in here is going to pay for it.
Who's paying? Nobody wants the answer.
400 migrants would be housed at the college during the summer months from June 1st to August 1st. Classes would resume. Some question policing of the temporary shelter moving forward.
The police department is going to make frequent visits here, which means if they're making frequent visits here, they're not out there.
There's plenty of resources to staff providing safety. So Wright College is part of our community. So to understand that.
And then white folks turning up there. KIPDR said Chicago is segregated as hell. Chicago is wildly segregated. It's a super segregated city. Let me finish playing this out. It's maybe about 20 seconds left.
Again, you heard it. That room was full of emotion. Now, a city official did tell me that they plan to give this plan to the city college's board to vote on this week. And if they vote yes, that means the migrants would be moving in ahead of that June 1st date. Live from the Dunning community, Tia Ewing, Fox 32 Chicago.
So we see what's going on over there, and shout out to Untried Genius. Said becoming a YouTube member. You were already a member, brother. I guess you dropped out for a little bit. I understand. Pockets a little light sometimes. Unexpected. Didn't have enough funds in the bank. Membership tried to kick in and it bounced. It's all good, brother. It's all good. Untried Genius. It's all good, bro. I've been there. It happens. It happens. Oh man, but shout out to Untried Genius, man. We've been supporting this channel for a long time, and also thank you very much to those showing love on Cash App. Thank you very much. I believe the name is Felicia, and also thank you, Donald. I don't like to say last names because just in case, but thank you very much for showing love on today's stream. Now, it's definitely appreciated. Now there's a huge difference, right, that I want to highlight between what's going on the northwest side of Chicago, where the white Chicagoans are, and also from where the south side is, right, and what's going on with black folks. What you'll see is that, and this is also the reason why you'll see that the left, media, right, CNN, MSNBC, and all that, why they don't want to really promote and talk about this stuff is because when you listen to what's happening on the northwest side of Chicago with white Chicagoans, they just simply don't want them there, right? They're not talking about the fact that they need resources, that they need assistance, and you didn't look out for us, so how are you going to look out for them and then force them in our community? No, they're talking about we just don't want them over here. And then they go on and list their reasons for why they don't want them here. And there was another video, I believe it was a WGN9 video, where, the Northwesterners, were talking, and some of the stuff that they were saying concerning illegal immigrants were like, okay, I don't know if I could play that one on YouTube, right? But that's what's happening over there. They just don't want them there. But when you look at what's happening on the south side of Chicago, they're saying you're giving them our resources that we need. You get what I'm saying? And we need help.
Mike,
and this is exactly why you don't see this being played and talked about in the left.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't he just contradict himself? Because didn't in that very meeting, that guy stood up and said, "Who's going to pay for it?" Like all the suckers in here, like to sit here and say that was not an issue they brought up, I think is just factually incorrect. Just from listening to the own video he just played.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem here is that
left mainstream media, right?
Those people are not there for free. Like when immigrants go to a place, the federal government injects a huge cash infusion to whoever keeps these people. A huge.
No, I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that. Let me finish playing this.
Okay, all right,
video.
all right, go ahead.
Because it's a horrible look. It's easy to just look at the white Chicagoans on the Northwest side and dismiss them and say, oh, well, they're just, xenophobes and racist and white supremacists, and they're probably MAGA, right? It's easy to dismiss them. It gets a little bit tricky though when you're talking about Black folks on the South Side who are supposed to be voting blue no matter who, but are very much so opposed to having illegal immigrants being imposed upon them in their community, where funds that should be going to the Southsiders are now going to other people. You get what I'm saying? It's really hard to spin that. And that's why you see they're not speaking on this at all. And that's why this is important to get this information out there. Now, I want to get into the actual video of what happened during a city council meeting when protests erupted, led by his good brother Tyrone Muhammad. He interrupted the city council hearing that was going on, the city council meeting that was going on. And this is actually what led to the temporary stoppage of the $51 million. But before we get into that video, there are 546 of you all in the live chat, in the live stream right now. Please hit the like button if you have not already. Information out there because this is very important.
Yeah, okay, man.
So, and also shout out to Jay the Informant for the support to the channel. Thank you very stream. And also shout out and thank you very much to the support for of the protest that erupted during the city council. I believe it was a meeting that was being held where good brother Tyrone Muhammad, him and his crew came and interrupted what was going on. That then led and transpired to the $51 million being put on hold. So now let's get into that news clip.
In Chicago in need of housing and support, city leaders are up against the clock, figuring out where additional funding should help them, where the additional help, I should say, is coming from. WGN's Jewel Hillary has that story from City Hall.
Hi, good evening, Micah and Ray. So there are still plenty of questions concerning how the city of Chicago will continue supporting asylum seekers here in the city. Earlier today, the city council was expected to vote on a potential multi-million-dollar aid package for migrants, but that got tabled. During Wednesday's city council meeting, several aldermen delayed a possible vote on a proposal to designate $51 million towards supporting migrants that started arriving to Chicago last August.
We need to come up with a better solution. We need to come up with a better funding source.
Before any more money.
I just want to pause that there. Look at what these brothers in Chicago did. They put this money on hold and now have them re-strategizing. They have to now go back. What do you call it? The Brandon Johnson administration in Chicago now has to go back and re-strategize. Now that alderman is talking about, city councilman is talking about how we have to come up with a better way of funding. We have to come up with a better way of doing things. They weren't talking like that before those brothers interrupted the meeting that was going on and, spoke their piece and did what they did. You get what I'm saying? And it wasn't just that one situation. These people, these brothers and sisters in the South Side have been stomping the ground, trying to put the clamps on what's happening in Chicago. But I just wanted to highlight that so I don't forget. They have applied enough pressure currently to have halted the funds and now has the Brandon Johnson administration having to re-strategize how we're going to go about doing this. I'm proud of what's going on over there. That's just me. I'm proud of what's happening in Chicago right now. Let me rewind it back a little bit.
Money is spent, 15 arriving to Chicago last August.
We need to come up with a better solution. We need to come up with a better funding source.
Before any more money is spent, 15th Ward Alderman Ray Lopez wants the new administration to create a cohesive citywide strategy to help the migrants in the near and distant future.
All of those things are unresolved, and yet we are asking taxpayers to basically be on the hook for nearly $250 million by the time we are done, August to August.
Mayor Brandon Johnson has called the council back into session next Wednesday to discuss the crisis.
My hope is that next Wednesday, we can deliver on our commitment to make sure that we are providing the support that's needed.
It'll have a phase one that will.
Before this Wednesday's council meeting, a group of council members proposing a plan to help migrants got interrupted by community.
That's Tyrone Muhammad with the hat on backwards.
Organizers questioning resources for current residents lacking adequate housing and additional aid.
Commit to me that we first.
We're going to commit. We got my
commitment what?
We got my commitment to work with you to make sure that those meetings are addressed.
Mayor Johnson.
He said, commit to me that we first. And then the dude was like, oh yeah, we commit to you. Tyrone Muhammad was like, he said, commit what? That's what's up, man. That's what's up. That's what's up. I'm sorry I keep interrupting. Let's get back into it. There's 612 of you in here right now.
And see, here's the problem here, right? This dude more than likely doesn't even vote. This Tyrone Muhammad, right? And so going up there being disruptive and causing a ruckus, that makes certain Black people, feel good about themselves because you're stopping progress for everyone else and until you get what you want that you don't even have yet to identify. Make a commitment to us, but who are you and what side do you want?
Well, it's also a tactic of making people like the stance seem larger than it is, because I've heard these people, they're like, oh, we went into a meeting and shut it down and this and that, and that'll be sort of a gauge for, oh well, this is something that's wildly popular because you got a few people who go in there and be unruly in a council meeting. That's how these people operate.
Go ahead, MLT.
I mean, the problem here is simply that they don't know how the process works. They're leveraging the middle. They don't have a side pick, but they love the disruptive capacity to go up there and act a damn fool in front of people. Oh, us first, we need our stuff now. And it's like, sir, the money that is funded for this is additional funds that come from other areas. And we're not even talking about a large group of people here. Those people are given a cash infusion to take those people. They're not taking money from other areas of the budget and taking care of these people. They are given a cash infusion by the federal government to take these people. That's how that works. That's always how the refugee situation works from the UN. And it's like, you have to listen to this hip hop nonsense because people don't understand how the process works just because they want to feel better about running up in people's faces. It's ridiculous.
It's just deliberate.
Let me finish playing it. Yeah, let me just finish playing it.
Now, please hit that like button if you have not already.
Johnson says he is dedicated to investing in overlooked Chicagoans.
Please pay close attention to this. And this is what I do not like Brandon Johnson at all. He is just another typical Democrat. That's all he
Okay,
is.
who's your candidate?
You're going to show that
Who's your
right
candidate?
now. You're going to watch benign neglect at its finest right here, coming from Brandon Johnson.
And additional aid.
I'm sorry. I'm just like acting a fool now. I just want to hear that again. When he was like, we're going to commit. He said, you're going to commit what? I just want to hear that one more time. I'm sorry. I just want to run that back.
Questioning resources for current residents lacking adequate housing and additional aid.
Commit to me that we first.
We're going to commit. We got my
commitment what?
We got my commitment to work with you to make sure that those meetings are addressed.
Mayor Johnson says he is dedicated to investing in overlooked Chicagoans.
We have to do right and support the families and the residents who have suffered in the city of Chicago for for decades now.
By now,
I want you to notice Brandon Johnson can't even say black. He can't even say we're going to commit to black people. The news reporter said Brandon Johnson vows what he said to commit to underserved Chicagoans. Let me play it back one more time. But pay attention.
Because African Americans aren't the only ones struggling in Chicago.
Yeah.
That's just the political reality that black people are not in Chicago are not the only ones struggling. There's other people struggling too. And looking at that video with all those, white people from Northwest Chicago, it looks to me like they're not doing too well themselves.
Well, that's how you can tell these people aren't serious, though. Like, they want you to come out and say, when you're a third of the city's population, that, okay, well, I'm going to stand up and solve all the black folks' issues, and then not say that for everybody else, and then think, that's politically savvy, like that's going to go over well. I mean, that's how you can tell these people aren't serious. They want people to go up there and say things that they know would be basically political suicide, so they can have a bunch of people, clapping who don't really clapping and celebrating when those people don't even vote, and all the time undermining the very progress of the people that they claim that they're trying to help.
Yeah.
Brandon Johnson can't even say he's going to commit to black Chicagoans and say he's going to do anything for black Chicagoans. He won't even say your name. He won't even say who you are. He refuses to address you, right? He refuses to address you properly. And that means he's not going to do anything for you unless enough pressure continues to be applied. He's not going to do anything unless he truly feels threatened, politically speaking, that is. Politically speaking. Let me run that back one more time.
Yeah,
commitment what?
You got my commitment to work with you to make sure that those meetings are addressed.
Mayor Johnson says he is dedicated to investing in overlooked Chicagoans.
Who are overlooked Chicagoans? What does that even mean? Because it sure doesn't mean black Chicagoans. Now listen to the lies and the benign neglect coming out of Brandon Johnson's mouth.
We have to do right and support the families and the residents who have suffered in the city of Chicago for.
Who are the family and the residents who have suffered in the city of Chicago the most? Who is he talking about? Who is he talking about? If he can't say black Chicago, if he can't say your names, that
who the hell do you think voted for Brandon in the first place? I mean, like, let me finish playing this, man.
That means he is not going to do anything for you unless the pressure that's being applied on him now continues. He's not going to do anything. And he came into office knowing he wasn't going to do anything for you. But when he did come into office, he knew exactly what he was going to do for these so-called migrants. He knew what he was going to do, and he spoke it out loud. But when it comes to you, he won't even say your name. Amazing. That's simply amazing.
For decades now.
By next week's council meeting, Alderman Ray Lopez hopes the new administration can answer several questions concerning funding for asylum seekers.
Where the money has been spent, where it's going to be spent, and what we're going to do moving forward in a citywide fashion.
Alderman Lopez says the city is currently spending about $20 million per month on migrants. He says if the council does vote to use that
$20 million per month. That is insanity.
$51 million for asylum seekers, that'll only get the city through about 2 months. Reporting from City Hall, I'm Jewel Hillary, WGN News.
Brandon Johnson isn't about nothing. Brandon Johnson doesn't care about black people. Okay, he doesn't care about black Chicago at all. Don't let him fool you with all that West Side talk. Okay, and I'm gonna get into that in just a second. But shout out to Val Williams. Thank
you. Okay, so what's the litmus test for, as a political candidate and as a politician for your commitment to black people? Like, what's the litmus test for that? I'm still waiting to hear.
So you do nothing on the right side of things, and you get no criticism at all. But the actual party, because there's not going to be a Republican that's ever going to be elected in Chicago. They already know that, right? Or maybe the people don't know that. It's just that it's a political literacy type problem that people don't understand. That they think that black guy get elected, black guy only help black people. Okay, you're not the majority in the actual city. Now that's an expectation for like places in the South that have way more black population. But you're like the people who elect them know what's on the other side, right? They know what's on the other side.
But here's the thing, MOT. That the whole thing is this. This is what they're trying to do. This is pushing this whole zero-sum mentality that you really see from Republicans. Well, if this group gets this, we're gonna lose. That's where this mentality comes from. It's very much the mentality you saw.
Hoarding of resources.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the mentality you saw in Jim Crow when you had a black person who was doing well, and instead of people having enough sense to realize that, hey, if that helps my state or my city, if that person is a member of my community, that you're going to benefit from that. It's no, I see someone doing well, so I need to go and burn their community to the ground or something along those lines. You don't want a leadership that's just going to go and say, okay, I'm just going to go and try to improve the livelihood of 30% of the city. That makes no sense. You improve the livelihood of everyone in your city because the economy of your city gets better and the actual pie is going to get bigger versus just, oh, well, I'm just going to try to focus on this group over here. I mean, we've seen this in the South for generations of how people have this mentality of, I'm going to basically vote against my interests. And we see where it's gotten that region as a whole in comparison to other regions. But this is the mentality these people are coming to try to push.
Let me finish playing this.
Thank you very much, Val Williams, for showing your support to the channel and for doing it in the middle of the stream, not at the end of the stream where you try to trick me and keep me on longer. So shout out to Val Williams for being a team player and supporting in the middle of the stream for once. Val said, TD, I agree with Deneen. You should show your face. You and Rob are too nice looking to hide your faces. Well, thank you very much, Val Williams. I appreciate that, but you're going to get me
Rob
in trouble
Perkins.
with my wife, okay? Shout out also to Tom Slick, man, always coming through just like Val Williams, right? Hopefully this is something that will continue. Hopefully this is something that will, but what could possibly happen is that Brandon Johnson will then be forced to divert resources and finances into Black communities in Chicago, right? In order to get these protests to.
That's what your aldermans are for. Okay, that's how the process works. Aldermans fight for their voting districts, and mayors basically manage the city. If your aldermans are not doing their job, then you need to take that up with the aldermans, not with just one person at the top. That doesn't work like that. The aldermen are supposed to be involved in that process, and that's what you have other elected officials for. I mean, and I don't get like this whole idea that everything must fall in the lap of this one person and then everything else just stops there. No, it doesn't work like that. That's just not how politics works. And I think that as long as content creators like this are pushing this narrative, it always keeps people spinning their wheels and pointing at the wrong, target for where the source of their issues are coming from.
Go
ahead. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say it's the same thing you see at every level. Whenever these people talk to politics, they go to the most visible figure and they try to lay it at the feet of this figure as to why this should happen. Why should people talking about Joe Biden and reparations? Dude, that's something that has to get through Congress. Joe Biden can't do anything on reparations other than, sign an executive order maybe for a study, and that's going to be challenged in court. So, I mean, this is what these people do, and is what political ignorance represents. You just go and find the biggest face. You don't worry about really their responsibilities and whether they even have the legal authority to do what you say you're doing, and you're just like, oh, well, this person should be doing this, and if they don't do it, we don't need to vote. And it's like, dude, they don't even have the authority to go and do that. Like, if you really want these issues addressed, there are channels to go and address them. But once again, one guy shows up at a town hall and demands that, people work with me first, and that's supposedly something that everybody's clapping their hands about. Like, yeah, that's going to solve the issue. Come on, man.
Yeah. MLT.
All right. No, I'm just in here. I'm good.
All right. Let me close this out, because I think he's ran his mouth enough. But this is the last piece, and I think MOT has touched on this earlier. Federal spending bill to include $800 million in grants for cities dealing with migrant crisis. The funding can pay for the cost of shelter, food, transportation, basic health, and first aid, COVID-19 testing, and other supportive services to asylum seekers. So the people that you see in Chicago are not illegal, they're asylum seekers, okay? It's a big difference in language, but content creators won't tell you all the nuances because they don't want to lose their audience. A federal spending bill will direct $800 million to cities like New York struggling to provide for thousands of migrants arriving from the southern border. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer negotiated the money as part of a $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill expected to pass by the end of the week, according to a person close to Schumer. The money will be allocated to FEMA's Emergency Food and Shelter Humanitarian Program for jurisdictions that have dealt with an influx of asylum seekers. It can pay the costs of shelter, food, transportation, basic health and first aid, COVID-19 testing, and other supportive services to asylum seekers, including the construction and expansion of shelters. It will be awarded through competitive grants that cities can apply for. Other municipalities like Washington, D.C. and Chicago, what about Chicago? Here goes Chicago, have also received significant number of migrants. New York City is expected to get a substantial share of the money, according to the person close to Schumer, who said the senator has already talked to FEMA about making sure New York gets a large chunk of the aid. Mayor Eric Adams has been pleading for federal help to aid the 31,000 asylum seekers who have arrived in the city this year. New York City is expecting 1,000 more people to arrive, more people a week to arrive when a federal restriction known as Title 42, which prohibited many asylum seekers from entering the country on public health grounds, expires. The rule had been scheduled to lift on Wednesday, but was paused by the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay. This is what happened. This is the context. This is why they're in Chicago. And that's where the $51 million came from. Okay. It didn't come from, Tyrone Muhammad, in his
didn't come out of the budget.
It was not out of their budget, but it didn't come out of Black people's pockets. Is more importantly, is what I'm trying to highlight, is that all these people who are up there protesting, make a commitment to me, all this other stuff. It didn't come out of there. It didn't come out of your pocket. So it doesn't really matter at this point. And I think that, content creators who do these type of things, man, do a disservice to themselves. Because when we do the fact checking on here, it makes it really difficult for you to move forward with your content, because how can anybody take you seriously if this is the sort of, discourse that you're trying to have? Go ahead.
But no, I was gonna say the reason they're doing this, like I said, once again, it's purposeful. They're wanting people to think that, once again, these people are coming to my city, and then I'm having to pay for it out of tax dollars from that are coming out of the city funds that would normally be coming to me. That's the whole purpose of this, because it's once again, it's supposed to reinforce the scarcity mindset and the zero-sum mindset, and completely overlooking the fact that, these people come into your city actually could end up being a net positive, because the federal government may send money, and whether it be, what these people go and do afterwards, whether they become productive people in the city, or whether it's just, you get more money as a result than is actually needed, it could actually end up being a net benefit. But people aren't really trying to have a genuine conversation about this. It's all about, like I said, promoting a zero-sum mentality, scarcity mindset, so you can push an agenda and make people think that, oh, well, immigration is my problem. I was addressing one person in the chat. They were saying, oh, well, I can't get a part-time gig because, the Latinos are got all the part-time jobs. I'm like, well, why do you need a part-time job in addition to full-time work? See, that's that's the issue that people don't want to really deal with here, in the sense of no one wants to really deal with the fact that, oh, whether it be stagnant wages or, you know, a different career path or, you know, dead end jobs, those things. People don't want to deal with the real issue there. They want to say, oh, well, you know, I need this, and these people, you know, I can't get it because of these people. That's always the diversionary tactic of where this always goes.
Yeah. And you got anything you want to add on this?
Yeah, at the end of the day, the people just got here, refugees from another country. And if they're leapfrogging you, it's a you problem. It's flat out a you problem. Like, dude, they're not even talking about that many people. They're not even talking about building housing for these people. They're talking about going to a public university to house them outside of the hours to which they're going to be paying for electricity anyway for these people. And they're going to be out of there by the time that they come to school. What are we talking about here?
Crazy.
No, I was going to say the same thing can tie, because one person in the chat too said, you know, they vote against initiatives because for Hispanics in their states, or they're against those things. I'm like, do you not hear what you're saying? You're literally saying you want to vote against the prosperity of one person, of a group of people in your state. It makes no sense, but that's how these people think. Like, they literally think in just terms of like, oh, well, you know, this one little faction over here. And it's just like, if you're a restaurant owner, you wouldn't want like the government just to promote the restaurant industry. That doesn't make sense. Like, you would want them to promote other businesses and recruit other businesses, because guess what? Those people who come from other businesses, that's going to flow to your restaurant with more people in there. But, you know, it's this mentality of, well, everyone has to be doing bad, has to be doing poorly for me to be doing well. And if other people are doing well, then, you know, somehow I'm going to be doing poorly. That's all this is.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, man, it behooves people to kind of do their homework. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, I'm not from Chicago, but you know, you can look at the facts on the table. Every argument he has made, we pretty much dismantled. At this point, I'm not sure. Yeah,
Mike. John M. seems to think that you said the speaker is misguided. Hey, man, the link is posted at the top. Why don't you hit the link, and why don't you bring your ass up here and tell me what we're misguided about? You know, we'll hear you out.
He's not coming up. Trust me, he's not coming up.
No, I just wanted to actually highlight. Let me post this here.
The other thing I quickly wanted to highlight too, with Nagone chiming in. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nagone. You're in the tri-state area. Immigration has been pretty good for New York City. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It definitely swells a lot of businesses' pockets, and so when people also start to come in and say, "Well, I'm taking my tax money and my tax dollars and all of this," and at the end of the day, you've got city taxes, state taxes, and so forth, sales taxes, and so forth. So when these people come in and they buy stuff, they actually pay taxes and add to the economy in so many ways. But that's another part of the equation we can't really get into. So when I hear this taxpayer crap, it's garbage, it's trash. It doesn't hold up underneath the smell test. So that's what so that's the deal. So you see these guys in here like David and these other guys come here popping off with idiocy. You know, you can easily dismantle it, because these guys are incredulous, unstudied, and have no real facts. They're just talking points, and we're here to dismantle all that. We're here to smash that into calanders, and leave it where it is.
It's funny that, like I said, New York. You know, I'm in DC area. You look at places like Miami, Los Angeles, Houston. It's quite interesting that, you know, these big cities that seem to be, you know, thriving economic centers have a lot of immigration, and, you know, these problems that these people are talking about somehow don't seem to be, you know, destroying the economy. And last time I checked, you know, at least in some of the southern cities, you know, Black folks tend to be doing pretty well in some of these places. But, you know, but these people are saying, well, if these people just leave and we go back to, getting jobs, cleaning the motel or, working in chicken houses, picking, working on the farms, doing low skill labor.
It's not even.
We'll somehow be doing well.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was gonna say
it's not even that kind of. Go ahead, finish.
No, I was just gonna say it's we'll somehow be doing well, and I'm just like, look at the Deep South here. Lots of black men work in those industries down there, and I'm not seeing the economic mobility that these guys are talking about.
Yeah, I want to read this real quick. This is from the United Nations Human Rights Council, okay, which the United States is a signatory of. Asylum is a form of protection which allows an individual to remain in the United States instead of being removed to a country where he or she fears persecution or harm. Under U.S. law, people who flee their countries because they fear persecution can apply for asylum. If they are granted asylum, this gives them protection and the right to stay in the United States. Those who are granted asylum are called asylees, okay? That's the difference. They're not illegal, they're asylum seekers. And so this idea that all these people should, they're just illegals, it's a misnomer. It's meant to spin, and it's meant to create a misinformation firestorm that gets people riled up, like Tyrone Muhammad, who runs up on politicians. Well, if you tried that in Boston, you'll probably get your brains blown out trying to run up on politicians like that. It doesn't work here. Unfortunately, this is the sort of stuff that, keeps the brain trust going, where we have to keep dismantling misinformation in this space. And any last thoughts from any of you gentlemen?
It's just that once you start connecting yourself to entertainment or hip hop, you shouldn't be talking about any other conversation outside and unless you're extremely knowledgeable about it. There's really no reason to be this ignorant about the actual topics and subjects, but they're taking their ignorance peddling from entertainment to actually now moving into politics, because they are still trying to maintain the exact same circumstance that gave them a voice in the first place.
Go.
Yeah, I would just say, listen, you can be on the so-called right, left, however you want to be. Just come up and have your facts straight. Have your basic information together. These folks don't have that, and that's the real problem. So we will continue to slap you guys consistently on your ignorance. You will not be taken seriously. You're not really respected, and you should be taken seriously. You should be respected if you're coming up and at least bringing in facts that actually add to these these conversations, that add to the dialogue. And most of you are unregistered. Most of you don't vote, and these kind of things. So we just got to look at it we have to look at it really for what this really is for a lot of these people. And the Brain Trust will stay on point with respect to that. Anyway, thanks for having me up, Mike. Greatly appreciate it.
MLC?
No, that's it. It's just that I've been a party to these actual asylum seekers at military bases, so I know a lot about this process that I'm not even going to talk about online, because it's just way too much military shop talk, and I don't want people weaponizing what I say and misconstruing it. But if you just don't know anything about the process itself, this stuff's the process. It's not automatic. You come here, you make your claim, you have to go make your claim in front of people. You have to make your claim in front of people, and they get to accept you or they get to deny you, but there's still a process. Like when Trump said, you can have your asylum, but go back to your host country that you wanted to seek asylum from. That makes no actual sense. And that's why they had to strike it down, because people who had intention of fleeing persecution would know that they had put an actual application in the United States, and if they went back home, they would simply die as soon as they got there. But it's this stuff comes from the federal government. There's nothing that the state is actually allocating to help these people, but the state is actually being paid to actually receive these people. Most likely this stuff goes to large churches and large organizations. Again, it's just another process that people don't know about, but they particularly think that they're seeing people get more than them without any type of engagement in the actual process. Well, the engagement in the process was the UN when they signed a charter. Your actual investment and engagement is based on productivity, which is in the society that you actually live in, if you actually want to participate in that. But it's just that they want to remove everything from those other people and think that more things come to them. That's not how that works.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust.